Let's take you to this now. The national and global community will next week mark the International Day of Persons with Disabilities under the 2025 theme, Fostering Disability Inclusive Societies for Advancing Social Progress. Across the world, persons with disabilities continue to face deep and persistent barriers, higher poverty levels, discrimination in employment, exclusion from social protection system, and care environments that often undermine their autonomy and dignity. The United Nations says an estimated 1.3 billion people, 1 in every 6 globally, live with a significant disability, and yet they remain disproportionately affected by health inequities, lack of access, and structural discrimination. To help us unpack what this day means for South Africa and what still needs to be done to advance inclusive development, we're joined by Lana Roy, Program Lead at 360 Disability Inclusion at Afrika Tikkun, joining us now. Lana, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Good afternoon, rather. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. We hear every year about disability inclusion, yet poverty levels among persons with disabilities remain. Lana, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear now. I'm saying we hear about inclusive policies for disability and people living with disabilities, yet poverty levels among people living with disabilities remain consistently high and disproportionately higher than the national average. Do you believe South Africa is genuinely addressing the economic realities of persons with disabilities, or is this just lip service?
So, I guess coming off of the D20 last week, we have certainly got the right policies, the right white papers, and the right legislations in place to address disability inclusion. Are we actually doing as much as we're saying? I don't think so. But I must say that the South African disability community and the disability organizations are really putting in as much effort and as much drive as possible to make sure that people with disabilities are at least having a say and having, and there's strong advocacy around the rights of people with disabilities. I personally think government can play a much stronger and a much more proactive role, but as I've mentioned, I think the start is there, and the D20 was certainly an exciting opportunity for us to actually start to say, hold on, come on, let's make this more action and less talk.
Do we see these policy frameworks and legislation translate into practice and reality? For instance, we continue to hear reports of discrimination in employment, lower wages, limited opportunities, and oftentimes the exclusion from work opportunities for people living with disabilities. Yet we have policies and laws that are meant to prevent that. Do we see the translation of these laws and policies into reality?
So it's truly amazing that Afrika Tikkun, so the organization I'm with, we run a cradle to career organization, or that's our program. So we take young children right from 3 years old into our mainstream ECDs right through to career. And Oliver, what keeps me up at night is the employment of these people with disability. We sit with a lot of young people who enter learnerships. There are fortunes of learnerships for people with disability because, one gets a lot of points, or their BBBE points or skills development points. But once they've completed their learnerships, they sit in our talent hub waiting to be employed, waiting for work experience. And actually that's what drove Afrika Tikkun to host the Valuable 500 Summit in September, which was all around bringing top companies in the African continent together and saying, come, let's work together to see how we increase the representation of people with disabilities in the workplace, how we increase leadership, and how we improve our reporting. And I think we're waking up. I actually had a conversation with one of our top organizations on Thursday last week, and they actually said to me, what, Lana, how do we actually do disability in our workplace? And at least they're asking the questions. So at least they're coming forward and they're saying, we're not sure, but help us. And that's exactly where we want to be at this moment. We want to say, come on, let's get to a place where we can help you, educate you, sensitize you, and actually let's get people with disabilities employed, because they are no different to anyone else. The only thing is maybe they require a bit of different accommodation that truthfully we all actually need in the end of the day.
Yeah, speaking about that, the special requirements, or not even special requirements, just the necessary requirements that people living with disabilities have in society are often overlooked. And that's, the first is accessibility, right? Accessibility to public services like transport, public transport, which is an important prerequisite for employment opportunity, right? Oftentimes that is overlooked in policy and practice. Are we addressing sufficiently through the legislative and policy instruments we have the accessibility question?
So it's there. I sit on the Gauteng provincial government quarterly reporting, and I see infrastructure, the Department of Infrastructure as part of this quarterly meetings. And they do report on this. But again, I'm going to be honest with you, not enough. There is not enough accessibility in terms of transport. I mean, let me give you a quick example. Even a young person comes to our training, and if he's in a taxi, he gets charged twice because he gets charged for his wheelchair space and for his space. So just something like that is worthy to take note of. The buses are not as accessible and infrastructure is not as accessible as it should be. The policies, again, are there, and we know that we need to be working on these in order to get people to access various transports. And again, we've just got to work harder but smarter, and we also have to just be more actionable in terms of what we're doing.
How do we begin to get that right? For instance, let's talk about the transport example you make, that someone who uses a wheelchair would need to pay double the amount because they have to pay their own fee and the fee for their wheelchair. What is the solution to that? Because a public transport operator will tell you, I've got 15 seats in my taxi, I need to report fees for 15 seats. I can't report any less. What is the solution in that instance? A sort of public dividend, a subsidy of sorts for public transport operators who accommodate and transport people with disabilities and special needs? What is the answer to that question?
So I don't think there is any answer, and I think we are speaking about it. So I'm just going to say on my personal thing, the learnerships generally that are taken, that are given to people with disabilities, generally are of a higher stipend. So if you got your average learnership around 5,000, there will be extra at least 2,000 to 3,000 rand that does accommodate for people with disability. So in that sense, it's accommodated for. I'm not 100% sure in the workplace because that would also need to be accommodated for. So they would need to earn a higher stipend or a higher salary to compensate for that. The other one, as you said, is government in terms of subsidies for transport or subsidies. And also for I guess, making buses, trains more accessible, and one shouldn't have to pay any additional. That's the whole thing about mainstreaming and including people in society, is what we call universal design. And universal design is saying, okay, when we design a train, when we design a bus, when we design a building, let's not just think of people without disabilities. Let's make sure we design with disabilities in mind. So a train, a bus, and as I said, I've mentioned all these, should have a universal design where we design with everyone in mind and not just people without disability. So yeah, I guess government should maybe put in a subsidy, good tax incentives for hiring people with disabilities. I think it would be a lot better for those. We know the BBBE exists, and we know skills development all exists, and one does get good points for people with disability, but it's not enough. It's actually just not enough.
Yeah. Lana, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your work. Really do appreciate you coming onto the program. Lana Roy from Afrika Tikkun speaking to us there.